Okay, Unit 2, you know what's up. This one's a little bit longer, a little bit chunkier, but that's alright. We all love our chunky queens. Cognition. If you ever want to review a quick test yourself, look at your objectives, and if you can answer every question. Emily, I just got your text, and I don't appreciate you interrupting this video. If you don't quiz yourself, just look at the objectives and get it done. Okay, this is a big chapter, so let me go. Oh. Okay. Chapter 7 in the AMSCO book. Or the textbook. Nature of memory. So basically, memory is the encoding, storage, and retrieval of information. It's also called the information process model, which is like what I just said. Memory encoding, how memory encoding works. So basically there's four steps. The first thing you have to do is pay attention. You have to be able to pay attention to something in order to receive the information. Then there's different levels of processing depending how much attention you paid. There's shallow processing, intermediate processing, and deep processing. Shallow is like just looking at it, intermediate is like actually labeling something, and deep processing is like putting a meaning to it. And then you have to elaborate on the actual information that you just learned, which is putting like a more extensive meaning to it, which is like linking prior knowledge to it. Then there's imagery, which is like, I think it's like the deepest type of processing, just like actually like put an image to it and picture something relating to what you just memorized. Memory storage, how the actual storage works. Encoding, by the way, in case you don't know, encoding is like putting things in specific places in your brain. Storage is like actually putting it in your brain. How it holds over time. So basically, Atkinson shifting theory talks about sensory, short-term, and long-term memory. 3 types of memories. It's also known as the multi-store model. There's sensory memory, which is like super uber short, things like seconds. There's echoic and iconic. Those are like super basic. Those are like sounds and fucking words. Oh shit, it curse. Oh fuck. Oh my god. It's super short. It lasts for a few seconds. It's like hearing like, I don't know, like something like clapping. Then there's short-term memory. Short-term memory, it's also called working memory. It's limited compared to sensory, but it can still hold longer. Basically, like someone's phone number or like pi, which is like you know a little bit, but you know like a whole thing. There's under short-term memory, way to like improve it. There's chunking and rehearsal. Chunking is putting things in groups, so like putting in small things, and rehearsal will be like saying it over and over again. Then there's also working memory, which is like another name for short-term memory, which basically talks about remembering stuff as we do it. So basically, like as it's active in your brain, there's the same things that what's in the other ones. And every like type of memory, there's always gonna be sounds, visual, and other stuff. There's different type of processing, but okay, let me not get there yet. Yeah, so basically those are like basically short-term memory. Processing, there's automatic processing, which is when you take information just like unconsciously. And then there's effortful processing, which is when you take your time to like actually think, okay, I have to study for this goddamn test. There's a central executive, which is basically like it takes everything together, and that's what connects things into the long-term memory, which is where I'm getting now. Now there's the long-term memory. The long-term memory, she's a beast. There's explicit memory, and then there's implicit memory. Okay. Explicit, implicit. Explicit basically says what happened. Like, it's just basically things that actually happen. Explicit, like, you know, XXX, things that are happening. And then there's implicit, like, implied things, which is like how to do things. Explicit, also called declarative, and then implicit is called non-declarative or procedural. Under explicit memories, there's episodic and semantic and flashbulb memories. So remember how explicit was what happened. So there's episodic, which is like remembering when, where, and what. There's semantic, which is like the overall knowledge. And then there's flashbulb memory, which is like really like intense memories. Then under implicit memories, which is how to do things, there's procedural skills, there's classical conditioning, which is you feel things because of something else, and then there's priming. Priming is, she's going to come back to. Priming is basically connecting things to something else in order to remember it better. Now there's how memory is organized. There's schemas, which is pre-existing knowledge that helps you figure out like things around you. So for example, like stereotypes, assumptions, things like that. Things that you already know is going to make you figure out something else. There's the connection network, the PDP, which is the memory scattered like all around your brain, but there's a network that connects it all to one. Where is memory stored? In neurons. Neurons, who is she? She's someone that I don't want to talk about, but I have to. Neurons are, there's neurotransmitters, which is, we'll get to it. There's a whole section on neurons, so I'm not going to stress about it. The brain structure, we'll get there too. But just know that memory is stored in your brain. Retrieval. How to retrieve memory. So basically, retrieval of memory comes out of the storage. There's the serial position effect. The serial position effect talks about how you remember the beginning, the end, but the middle is like blurry. So like the social security number, how you always remember like the first numbers, and you always remember like the last numbers, but the middle, so it was like, There's priming effect, which is like the beginning, and then there's resonancy, which is you remember the end. Retrieval cues and task. Cues talk about help you remember. Okay, cues trigger other things, and then task is what you want to remember. Recall and recognition. Recall is basically retrieving previous learned. Like, okay, recalling something is like an essay test, and then recognition would be like a multiple choice. Cues help with recognition, not with recalling. There's encoding specifically, which is the environment affects the environment, the real, whatever. Context at encoding and retrieval. Context-dependent memories. Those are memories that people remember better when they're like in a specific place. So, for example, Miss Lombardo wants to take the AP Psych test in her class because it's basically a familiar environment that we learned. So we're going to retrieve memory better when we are in an environment that we like know. Okay, we're almost there. Oh, no, no. Okay. Specific case of retrieval. There's autobiographical memories, which is like specific memories from your life that are really intense. Resident plump, which is that adults remember some stuff. Emotional memories, there's flashbulb memories, which are talked about under explicit memories. Traumatic events. Some traumatic events can make stuff either really vivid and make you remember like specifically, but they're always going to be vague, and they're going to be like not exact because your brain's going to try to fit in places. There's repressed memories, which there's another chance that with really intense memories, you're going to try to repress them. There's psychodynamic theory, which is that you repress memories in order to protect you. And then there's the motivated forgetting, which is that you forget things on purpose in order to prevent like pain, anxiety, and such like that. Eyewitness testimony, which is inaccurate and biased and distorted because it's basically it depends on each person and how they interpret the situation themselves. I have 6% and I have to finish a whole chapter. Forgetting. Oh, man, yes. Forgetting. Herman Ebbinghaus, you forget right after you learn it. He was obviously wrong. Kadao. Encoding failure, which is some type of forgetting, which is new information just wasn't overall encoded properly into the long-term memory, which is why you don't remember it properly. Retrieval failure, which is where you don't retrieve stuff properly because it was stored in a different place. Interference. There's stuff that interfere, and that's why you can't remember. There's proactive interference and there's retroactive interference. Proactive interference is that old stuff messes with the new one, and then there's retroactive, which is that new stuff messes with the old one. So for proactive, for example, let's say that you're dating this girl and her name is Anna, but you dated this girl before and her name was Ellen. You're going to call this new girl Ellen because your old memory is going to take over, and for proactive, it'll be the opposite. You confuse it. Think of proactive, you confusing the pro with future, and retroactive, you confuse the past with retro. There's retrieval cue failure, which is when the cues that you connected it with fail you. Decay. There's when the trace in your brain decays with a lack of use. Tip of the tongue phenomenon, which is when you like, oh my god, when you swear, you know that word, when you do the test, and you're like, oh my god, the words that I spent all night like fighting over, now I can't remember it. It's basically a retrieval cue failure. There's prospective memories, which is remembering something in the future. It's complete. Time-based, event-based, and absent mindlessness, which is when you forget something based. Blah 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 blah. Time-based, remembering time, event, remembering something. Amnesia, there's anterograde and retrograde. Anterograde, you can't entrar new memories. Retrograde, you forget the past. Cognitive revolution. Oh, cognition. Should I make a whole term cognition? No, cognition. We got this. Cognition, girl. We're almost there. Cognition is basically the way information is processed and manipulated by the brain. There's artificial intelligence, blah, 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 psychology. Okay. Thinking. Thinking is manipulating information mentally by making concepts, problem solving, and decisions. Concepts are a mental category of grouping things. It basically allows you to generalize subjects. It makes you be able to retrieve things better. There's prototype model, which is when you evaluate something and you compare it to a stereotype-ish thing. There's formal concept, which is clear definitions. Natural concept, which is no set rules. And there's problem-solving types, which is trial and errors. Problem solving is finding a way to achieve a goal when it's not given to you. You have to follow steps. Problem solving is only for smart people. I'm kidding. Everybody has a problem solving in their life. Basically, you have to find a strategy. No, you have to find a problem. So sit down, be like, what's wrong? And then you have to find a strategy. How am I going to approach this? You have to find a sub goal, which is basically an intermediate goal to reach your goal. There's algorithms, which is strategies that give you a situation that always work, and there's heuristics, which is shortcuts that don't always work. Evaluate the solution, evaluate how it's going to happen, and then challenge your problem and solution, which that's only for like higher thinkers, which is saying that how can you improve your solution. An issue is becoming fixated, which is when you can't think of a solution because you're used to only one way of solving things. There's functional fixedness, which is when you can't solve something because you're only looking at one way to solve something. Effective problem solving, which is allows you to think properly. Oh my god, I forgot this existed. Okay. Reasoning and decision making. So there's deep connections to neurons and ability to judge, evaluating conclusions and decisions. Reasoning is basically transforming information to reach a conclusion. There's inductive reasoning, which is getting information and applying it to a big group. So you induct information to a big group, and then there's deducting information, which you deduct information from a big group into a smaller group. There's decision making, which is like decisions, pick the best one. There's two types of reasoning and decision making. There's automatic decision making, which is system 1, which is fast, gut feeling, you know this. And then there's controlled decision making, which is like slow processing, think about it like math problem. Biases and heuristics. Okay, I'm gonna try to fly through this. There's confirmational bias, which is when you look for information that supports rather than the one that contradicts. An example will be politics look for things that are going to make the campaign look better. There's base rate fallacy, which is you ignore information because of some outside influence. So it will be like when you look at a TV, you look at a TV show because you like it, but then your friends don't like it, and you're like, ugh, that sucks. There's hindsight bias, which is that you say wrong stuff just because you think you know it to be true. Like, you say stuff just because you think it's right, but it's probably wrong. There's representative heuristics, which is when you judge something based on their appearance and prior knowledge based on their actual evidence. And there's availability heuristics, which is that you predict something based on how likely it is to happen. Okay. Thinking, I have 3%. Thinking and creativity. One more page-ish. Critically thinking, you have to be mindful, you have to be open-minded. Creative thinking, there's divergent and convergent thinkers. Divergent think of many solutions to one problem, so divergent, think of the movie, they talk about two people that want to be like super outcast, super cool. And then there's convergent people, which is they find the best solution to one problem. There's creative thinkers, you need high intelligence, flexible, whatever. Language. A form of communication that is based on a system of learning. The basic properties of language. It's influenced the infinite generativity. which is they're capable of creating endless combinations. There's phonology, which is a system where language is made of sound. Phones make sound, things like that. Morphology, which is forming language by meaning a proportion of something, so like morphing words. Syntax, which is a rule of combining words for like make accessible sentences. So taxes are a rule for you to function properly. Semantics are the meaning of words in connection to others. Remember this as semantics. You want to connect. Okay, whatever. You see semantics. You hear the connections. Pragmatics, which is communicate more than what's just said. Language and cognition, the role of language and cognition. There's linguistic relativity hypothesis, which is basically saying that language affects the way we look at things. So, for example, that since women know more colors, they're able to spot more colors, which is whatever. Biological environment. Language is universal. Everyone is able to spot a language. Language in the brain. This part of the brain that's pre-designed for the lane. There's the Broca's area, and then there is the awareness area, which we'll get there in the brain stuff. Environmental influences. Depending on where you are, you're going to interpret the language differently. It depends how you behave and how you learn, how exposed children are to things, how they're going to grow up to be. Language developing in children. So from 0 to 6 months is just like blah 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 blah. 6 to 12 months is babbling. So like I the G mama. 12 to 18 months is a year. They're basically understanding like 10 plus 50 plus words. If it's basically this, if you want me to put a picture of it below, like in the comments or something, or in the group chat, I'll put it below. But yes, ma'am, ladies and gentlemen, that was Unit 2.